Previously, we looked at the worst level in every Twisted Metal. This time we will look more on the positive side with the best level from every entry in the series, since there are some true masterpieces of designs throughout this entire franchise, always being a great experience, starting right away with the first Twisted Metal game. Twisted Metal 1 has some stale map design, as we stated last time with River Park Rumble and Warehouse District being Big Brother and Little Brother, with most levels sharing a generic city look, which of course fits the nature of this game, so there's nothing really wrong with it, just kinda boring. People always sit on the wiener of Suburbia, never really understood why that is. The level is just way too large for its own good. This was a very easy pick for me though. Rooftops is by far the best level in this game, and contention for the entire series for me. Music is a large contributor of making an aspect of a video game really stand out, and I feel like the score here is brilliantly done, giving an end of world vibe, fitting perfectly because this is the final level. All of the levels are quite repetitive aside from Rooftops, where the mechanic of falling to death was implemented. This is not some unreal, megamind, unheard of part of anything, but in comparison to every level before, we had a semblance of something new. It felt very unique and different. You could go from roof to roof, even though it's a sphincter clenching maneuver every time you go across the jump. It always feels like the game's gonna glitch and you'll die. Playing as slow characters, this probably will happen and you'll fall to your death, so you need to be really careful of that. I've killed myself with Darkside way too many times trying to get across. I also love the general scenery. Somehow Calypso flew the cars up here, maybe they took some elevators, I don't know, and they just battled on buildings with the Microsoft Paint background. I'm sure it looked better in 1995, but I can actually make this myself right now. See, next stream I expect a $20 donation from every single one of you because no one has ever created a masterpiece of this magnitude. Overall, I just feel Rooftops was very unique in comparison to the rest. The aesthetic is great and the soundtrack alone is enough to put it towards the top. It did a great job of being iconic, making it the best of Twisted Metal 1. Twisted Metal 2 is where levels really got pushed to their limits. We have a wide variety in comparison to the first title, being expanded upon way more. More destructibility, more uniqueness, and even more icons were put into the world. The only place Twisted Metal 2 suffers with pure level design is probably the final level. Rooftops did a much better job giving off an ending vibe for a final boss. Obviously, this game does have some stinkers. No game is free from that. Moscow and Holland are atrociously bad, being annoying as hell and not fun to play on. I always dread them the few times I actually turn Twisted Metal 2 on. But when it comes to the best, we do have some really solid choices here as well. The two that stand out to me the most are Los Angeles and Antarctica. Los Angeles did a great job of starting up the tournament, a very simple level design but easy to traverse, a memorable soundtrack allowing for players to dip their toes into the experience. Sometimes simple is better, but not in Twisted Metal 2. Antarctica to me is the best level in the game. I always love the creativity of how the level falls apart while you're driving around, keeping you on your toes at all times. You always have enough time to figure out like, wow, the ground underneath me is falling, so you can just get off of it and not die. Just having that fear is always exhilarating because you never know when it's gonna happen. Plus, being able to do this to your advantage is always fun to do as well. If an enemy is trying to get off the iceberg, just freeze them or shoot a ricochet at them, keeping them on the platform so you can watch that shit stain fall to its doom. My favorite part is when I'm trying to get off the iceberg and an enemy shoots me from behind, sucking me backwards and making me die. Always loads of fun. Antarctica can be quite tough, being much later in the game. Sometimes you're low on lives and it forces you to play very scared, so you don't need to restart. Bullshit can happen at any moment, which is my favorite part of this level. The shit is spread equally and not just towards the player. I love watching the AI kill themselves, randomly driving off the map, or using their special to do the same. A game where it's everyone in the tournament versus you, it's nice to have an advantage on our side for once. Plus, if you get really scared and need to finish the level, you can sit at the end of a teleporter with ricochets and just exploit the hell out of the AI, winning Antarctica with ease. We have a great aesthetic here, wonderful soundtrack, and we never really play in snowy areas, so having them is always nice to see. The infamous entry in the series, Twisted Metal 3, the worst part of this game is the level design being overly flat with nothing to really offer in destructibility compared to the predecessor. Some of them have hills and ramps, but we're mostly driving on flat grounds from point A to point B with little to do in between. Obviously, Egypt can't be the winner of the best level, even though I really enjoy desert levels in these games. Out of the few options we have, the blimp surely needs to be the pick. Not having much to work with, this level has some semblance of quality to it. The Robert Zombert track is nice to have in the background, or if your PS1 disc is scratched like mine, you'll hear him repeat the same words over and over again with slight scratching sounds going on over his voice. There's a couple of boxes and a hole, which really helps when it comes to fighting the final boss. Primeval is able to be insta-killed with mostly every character. Ones like Thumper can do it the easiest by freezing him and just using the special one time to acquire an easy victory royale. Sadly, I need to scrape the bottom of the barrel since there's just nothing really positive to say about any maps here. It's so difficult. The one big thing I will say about this level though, the panel shooting aspect is really cool. In tournament mode, when you kill an enemy, they respawn infinitely unless you destroy all 5 of the panels around the map. It's something tossed in to spice up the gameplay, which is much appreciated. They attempted something new here, which clearly puts the blimp at number 1. Not really a hard task to pull off, nor does it have any competition, and a map needs to go here, so thank you Calypso's blimp for doing what you do. Twisted Metal 4 really has some sleeper map designs. The improvements 989 made over the 3rd game was very impressive in the time frame. I'm glad to see they really honed in and fixed many of the issues, one of those being the map design. Granted, a lot of them are ridiculous, which I actually prefer. Playing in real locations can sniff my asshole, and I never really cared for it. Fake locations allow for more creativity and unique map layouts. Something like the bedroom is a perfect example of that. A ridiculous level, but flows very well and plays fantastically, which is the most important part. There are a couple of options we have as great levels. The bedroom, as I said, the carnival is a great pick, and also the construction yard, with the rest being serviceable enough. The bedroom is literally a Hot Wheels level in disguise and weirdly nostalgic, mainly because of the CR TV. I remember playing Twisted Metal in one of those pieces of shit that weighed 500 pounds. In seriousness, we do have a nice flow here. Lightning is garbage here, sadly, but the overall level is fun. I just don't feel like it compares to how good Carnival and Construction Yard play out. The Carnival has the roller toaster, using the Carnival as a high ground, being able to snipe enemies, or even trap them with proximity mines on a roof. It has a good mixture of flat grounds and high grounds, giving an unexpectedly enjoyable time, having that variety in place. That center ring where the AI always glitch and endlessly drive into the teleporter is a good spot to try to use the fire down below and get a bit of damage off. It is quite hard, but it can be done. With all of this being said, beating Construction Yard is a really tough ask. This is a case where simplicity is king. We have a centerpiece being the crane, which I believe is the only time in Twisted Metal where the player is able to enter something and control it, which is really fun to do and easily exploitable, of course. Each of the 3 sections are set up in different ways, breaking up redundancy, creating different types of engagements, or as different engagements you can have in Twisted Metal. There isn't that much depth here. I feel people underestimate how good this level actually is. It always plays differently every time, and I really enjoy going back to it. Going through it on the tournament is always fun as the first level, maybe deathmatch against a bunch of Sweet Tooths or other random challenges, undoubtedly being the best from Twisted Metal 4 and a top in the entire series for me. Twisted Metal Black is a really tough one. The maps here are just like not very good. We're not talking Twisted Metal 3 bad, but it's the weakest part of Black for sure. Most of them are very boring aesthetically, which is the reason people always say Snowy Roads is even a memorable map. For Black being on PS2 hardware, we don't really have any interesting level engagements either. There's just nothing interesting. The closest thing to an event we have is the Ferris wheel in Suburbs. This was really a struggle. None of them stood out to me. Granted, with a color palette this boring, do you really expect any of them to? If you put a piece of moldy bread in my face, threatening my life, forcing a map to be chosen, like, man, I don't know, like Suburbs probably, because at least we have a large amount of destructibility, while also having the environmental lightning having a great looking effect for the time period. The Ferris wheel is off the chain, but other than this, I have nothing to say, and these levels are actually so boring. Like, just what happened, guys? Twisted Metal 2 is some amazing maps with plentiful amounts of creativity and intrigue. Like, why couldn't that be used here? If you could bottle these maps up and put them on store shelves, we'd be using that when we're sick to fall asleep instead of using NyQuil, because that shit would be out of business in a second. Small Brawl probably has the best map selection in the entire series. All of these are just so creative, lots of attention to detail, one of the reasons I hold this game so highly. If we get a solid Twisted Metal core gameplay experience with fantastic maps on top of it, that's all you can really ask for. I was looking at Mini Golf Mayhem, Meet Your Maker, Treetop Rumble, Playground Peril, and Easy Death Oven. And you could argue all of these could take the top spot because the music on them is fantastic. Each of them have fun interactable elements, allowing us to use our environment to our advantage, giving the player a reason to use their brain and surrounding, which really goes a long way. Out of the 5, Easy Death Oven had to be my pick because I genuinely think this is one of, if not the best map in the series. Top 3 for sure. There is so much craziness going on, added an interesting high ground, low ground situation. Getting your enemies stuck in the electric can opener is perfect since you can just lay waste into them, or even using the microwave as a weapon. Wait for them to drive by, get them stuck, and you're able to do some damage to them or get them off your ass. There's a risky health pickup inside also. Enemies will most likely trap you when you get inside, so you need to be careful. The infamous plumber anus tactic is part of Easy Death Oven, where you shoot a napalm into his bum, opening an entire area where Darkseid is unlocked, granting the player health and a power missile pickup, which I really like. They easily could have made this a one and done situation where you just unlock Darkseid and that's it, but opening the area is actually good to do whenever this map is played on. Our environmental weapon here is fun to use also, being a bunch of ice cubes freezing enemies. Granted, it is hard to hit people with, but it's still nice to have in your arsenal. There's just so many interactions and traps laid around this entire level, while also having a fantastic flow, making me put it above the rest. Twisted Metal Head-On, like, oy. When we talked about this game on the worst levels video, I said the levels were the strongest aspect of Head-On, aside from the content for Extra Twisted Edition. We're just talking about the base game here. It's not hard to pull off since that version of the game is also really bad, but I think the levels are decent enough here. Like, they're not amazing in comparison to other games in the series. They're much better than 3 and Black for sure. Just compared to the rest, they're just not very good. I just have a simple answer for this: Egypt. A part of me did want to say Russia because it has a lot of secret areas and creativity put into it. Some would say objectively being the best map in Head-On due to that alone. Most levels in the series don't even have that expansive of creativity unless your name is Small Brawl. The reason I chose Egypt is 1, for the redemption for Twisted Metal 3 giving us an Egypt map that's not shit. 2, I just love the aesthetic of Egypt itself. It makes me happy to see one that's actually playable. The environmental attack in the tornado looks really good and useful when you get someone stuck in it. We have a couple secret areas thrown around with the details inside of the pyramids looking quite enticing. It's very simple and straightforward for me. I believe there's only 2 levels in this entire franchise that take place in this location, one of them obviously being junk, so we have the other being our only enjoyable Egypt experience, making this level really unique for that alone. So I can thank Head-On Extra Twisted Edition for doing something correct. We've arrived at the goal point of 2012. This is a very easy one. Everyone can agree with it. The races are just awesome. Like, who wouldn't love racing in Twisted Metal? Seriously, if you don't like this, you're not a real fan. My favorite moment of racing is on the ugly-ass street level that looks like someone sneezed on the screen due to how washed out it is. Not having a clear path of where to go and making one mistake forces the player to restart. Like, that's what I call quality gameplay right there. Nothing makes me happier than this. Like, seriously, dude, the man who worked on this is a monster among society. Having barely any sense of direction, being forced to play as a fast car because it's practically impossible otherwise, that's what I call perfection right there. Like, who wouldn't agree? I'm sure everyone and their cat had fun playing this. Like, how could you not? With that, it's the best level in every Twisted Metal game. Please share your list of the best levels in the comments below. I'm curious to see what everyone else's lists are, and also share how amazing your experiences were with the races in 2012. I'm sure you had a blast with those.
Hello! Hey, me! Thank you to every one of you who support the channel and help this become a possibility. We all in the Purple Monkey family love you. All hail Hansi Buddy!